Good evening. Always have to try that a couple of times to get people to settle. I don't know why that is, but welcome to Conversations at the Donald Danforth Plant Science Center. My name's Tim Rogers, and I'm chairman of the Friends Committee. And the Conversation series, as a lot of you know, features leading experts in plant science and related disciplines, speaking on topics of regional and global urgency. And I want to underscore that word. Remember that urgency, urgency, urgency. Since 2003, the Conversation series has offered the public the opportunity to learn about the work of the center and its partners. I also want you to remember that these conversations are not meant to start here. I mean, they're meant to start here, not end here. So we're not here to eavesdrop on a conversation. Our job is to carry on the conversation that's starting here. So our friends on stage, I thought there were going to be more of them. Our two friends, we got a lot of friends here. They are experts in plant science, but we're expert in what's important to our friends and acquaintances who would benefit as we have by association with the Donald Danforth Plant Science Center. So as friends of the center, we want our conversations to lead to conversions. We want these friends and acquaintances who, if they knew of our aspirational mission and the incredible accomplishments of the center, would want to join in the conversation moving forward. That mission, as most of you know, I think it'll be up here in a second, is to improve the human condition through plant science. Scientific teams here focus at the nexus of food, energy, and the environment to improve the productivity and sustainability of agriculture. The Danforth Center seeks to accelerate movement of breakthrough technologies into the hands of farmers and other people where they are desperately needed around the world. So remember that. This is urgent. This is accelerate. This is desperate needs around the world. And I think the topic tonight is a perfect example of that as we learn more about the Wells Fargo Innovation Incubator, IN2. A lot of what's done at the center, as we know, is more long-term in nature, and I have no pun intended by that. But what we're going to learn about tonight is really much more about something that we can accelerate, we can move forward. We're going to learn all about the IN2 program with a conversation between Mary Wenzel, who's Executive Vice President and Head of Sustainability and Corporate Responsibility for Wells Fargo Advisors, and Sam Fiorello, our Chief Operating Officer of the Danforth Center and the President of Bridge Park. Then we'll take a deeper dive into the partnership with two of the 5 companies in this first Ag Tech class. The first is Acre Technologies with CTO David Czar, paired with Malia Guillen, I hope I got that right, and then Renaissance, whose co-founder Bala Venkata is paired with Danforth Center's Director of Data Science, Noah Falgren. Before we begin, a special thanks to our sponsors, our long-term sponsors, that is the St. Louis Public Radio and HEC Media. Beginning on Sunday, October 27th, you can see the recording of tonight's program on Sundays at 5 and Saturdays at 7 a.m. throughout the year. It's only thanks to this supportive community that the Danforth Center can host these programs and carry on its important work. Welcome, and we hope you're going to enjoy tonight's program. I'll go so far as to guarantee it, and you have a free meal anywhere in the St. Louis area if it doesn't meet your satisfaction. Just see Jim Carrington. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Sam Fiorello to kick off the conversation.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks very much. Yeah, thanks all of you for coming. This is really a special night. I have had the good fortune of getting to know Mary we met about a year ago and gotten to know her some, and she's terrific, and it's so great to come here tonight, fly in from Denver for this, and then she's off to her next meeting in New York, so it's really wonderful for her to be here. Tim talked a little bit about how this thing is going to go, but I'll give you a little bit more detail. Think 3 segments. We'll have this first piece here, conversation, get to know Mary better, and I'll introduce her more fully in a minute. There'll be a short video, IN2 video, that the team put together, a couple of minutes long, and during that transition, we'll ask the 4 panelists to come up, and we'll get to know more about them and their work and their involvement in the IN2 program. Before I do any of that, I want to call out some special guests who are here tonight. All of you are VIPs, but I'm going to call out a few folks. I'd like to recognize Missouri State Senator Jill Shoup, Missouri State Representative, member of the Wells Fargo team, Michael O'Donnell, St. Louis County Councilwoman Kelly Dunaway, District Director for U.S. Senator Roy Blunt, Mary Beth Wolf, And District Director for U.S. Senator Josh Hawley, Sam Safa. And District Director for Congresswoman Ann Wagner, Miriam Stonebreaker. So thanks all of you for coming. I'd also like to recognize several members of the Wells Fargo team that are joining us tonight and here to hear what we're going to talk about and see Mary. And those folks are Vice President of Community Relations, Vianney Beltran, Business Development Officer, Julie Havens, and Vice President of Regulatory Affairs, Toby Steele. So thank you guys for coming. So Mary's going to spend more time with a deep dive into what the IN2 program is. She's at the very front end of creating this program, and the Danforth Center's involvement goes back a little over a year, but the IN2 program predates it by a number of years before that, and I'll let her drill into that. But I will say for the Danforth Center, it was a beautiful fit to connect with Mary and Wells Fargo and the IN2 team because, as all of you know, one of our stated mission points is to help spur innovation in the ag tech and the plant tech space, to look for ways to help companies, whether they're homegrown or companies that are anywhere in the United States or the world indeed, to be more successful and thrive and hopefully grow in our community. And you see some of the fruits of that labor with the construction project going on our campus with our second building in Bridge Park, which will come online in May. It's a terrific program. It's one that leverages our scientific and discovery strengths, our core facilities, and really our culture of collaboration and understanding that we need to work with parties from the private sector to get our discoveries and their discoveries out into the world. So I'll stop with that. And now I'm going to read a really brief summary of Mary's bio because I could spend the rest of the night if I would have read it all. She's done so many great things.
Don't do that.
So, Mary Wenzel is Executive Vice President and Head of Sustainability and Corporate Responsibility for Wells Fargo and Company. In this role, Mary is responsible for the strategic integration of sustainability and corporate responsibility across Wells Fargo's products, services, operations and culture, and philanthropy. Prior to joining Wells Fargo in December of 2004, Mary worked for the U.S. EPA, managing, among other things, renewable energy and the Energy Star program. Mary earned a BA degree in International Relations from Johns Hopkins University and a master's degree in Public Administration from Columbia University School of International and Public Affairs. So Mary, welcome.
Thank you.
So let's start with just getting to know you more, a little bit more about your story and your path towards this leadership position with a very large company and one that's involved in so many different sectors.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you all for joining us tonight. Thrilled to be here and see all your lovely places out there. And I'm glad you all had a cocktail because you'll soon realize I am not a plant scientist. That is not my background, but smart enough to know where the expertise does reside around plant science. So my journey has been a 20-plus career in the sustainability space. As Sam said, I joined the U.S. EPA right out of graduate school. They hired 100 of us and said, build the Energy Star brand. And so it's always been from an entrepreneurial collaboration partnership basis. And many of us worked with manufacturers to get them to develop more energy efficient products. And some of us worked on the consumer side, really raising awareness of the Energy Star brand among the general public and asking consumers to think about energy efficiency in their purchasing decisions. And so a really great entrepreneurial start to my sustainability career and getting to work with a lot of corporations. And in that space, it was really key to my understanding that collaboration is critically important if we're going to advance sustainability goals and purpose. And that companies really are strong drivers of change. And you need companies to participate in the conversation to really accelerate progress in the sustainability space. And from there, I went to work for a large energy company, Enron, that some of you may have heard of. It was when they were developing green power offerings for consumers. So again, asking people to understand the implications of their choices to make sustainable choices and realize that, each of us has the ability to drive sustainability through our choices and practices and behavior. And after Enron blew up, I went back to work for the EPA in San Francisco working with tribal nations and really helping tribes think about how they develop their own capacity to manage sustainability issues on their reservations. And then in early 2004, I was reading a public affairs journal, saw this tiny little ad, like a 1/8 page ad. Wells Fargo was looking to hire a head of environmental affairs. And early in before kind of LinkedIn and kind of social media for hiring, I called the number, and the gentleman who would become my boss picked up the phone and answered the phone. And to Wells Fargo's credit, 2004 was really early for a financial institution to be thinking about sustainability. We weren't a manufacturer. Our supply chain was mostly people and stuff, electronics, computers, desks. It wasn't, a supply chain that had significant environmental impacts. But to our leadership's credit, they said, we don't know what we don't know, but we know this is important to our stakeholders, to our team members, to our communities, to our customers, and we want to be a responsible actor in the sustainability space. And it's been a great journey from 2004. So when we set our first environmental commitment in 2005, the company said, well, what needs to be part of that commitment? And we said, well, we lend money, so lending to sustainable businesses needs to be part of that commitment. And so we sat down with leaders and said, well, we don't know what counts. We can do $1 billion of sustainable lending. And just 2 years ago, we refreshed that commitment with a $200 billion commitment. So that tells you it's good business, and it's the right thing to do for all the right reasons.
That's fantastic. Can you tell us about the origins of the IN2 program, going back to the early days, your affiliation with NREL?
Yeah.
It was a significant gift and really impactful, but how did you guys get there?
How did we think of that? So sustainability was one of the priorities of our foundation, the Wells Fargo Foundation, and my team had developed relationships with a number of clean technology incubators and accelerators and research institutions around the country because we were focused on clean tech as a company. We have a clean tech commercial banking group. We have a renewable energy and environmental finance team. And so we had some unique expertise in that space. And we really wanted to look again for those that we could collaborate with to really drive progress in developing clean technologies to address climate change. And so we thought about, well, we've got these relationships with these incubators and accelerators. We've got expertise in the company, and we have a really engaged, involved corporate properties team that was willing to deploy those technologies if they made sense for us. And at the time, we had 100 million square feet of real estate. So we had a big footprint to deploy some of those clean technologies in our own buildings. And we looked for a partner, and knowing that, we don't know everything, who's the expert. And when we first started, our focus was on the built environment, so commercial real estate, because we had 100 million square feet of commercial real estate. And buildings, commercial buildings, generate 40% of greenhouse gas emissions in this country. And we're a big commercial real estate lender. And so we had a cohort of customers that were focused on these issues as well. And so we created Innovation Incubator to really create collaboration among all those channel partners that we work with to think about how we could accelerate development of clean technology and help our entrepreneurs overcome that valley of death to commercialization. And so the program provided $250,000 of non-dilutive capital to our entrepreneurs. It provided them a facility to test and validate their technology at the NREL facilities when it was focused on commercial buildings, and then the opportunity to pilot their technology in a Fortune 50 company environment. And so a really powerful set of benefits to those entrepreneurs that joined the program. And we've seen that really play out quite powerfully. Our entrepreneurs have, for every dollar we've invested in the program, have been able to raise $21 in follow-on funding. So incredible leverage from participation in the program. And so we went through about 5 or 6 rounds of investing in the built environment and then brought all our partners together probably 2 or 3 years ago now in Golden to brainstorm about the next focus area for the program. Where would we go after commercial building technologies? And really did true brainstorming among those experts across the country. And they decided the most promising area that was underinvested in was the food, energy, water nexus. And that we also are a large ag bank, so again could bring expertise from our business to the table, but had to go out and find the partner that could really help us identify the most promising ag technologies, help those entrepreneurs really validate and advance their technologies, and was really, really pleased to identify the Danforth Center.
No, it was terrific. I remember meeting some of your Wells Fargo colleagues first, maybe 2 years ago at an ag showcase here and talking about what we do, and they're saying, we're thinking about different directions. So that was the beginning of the relationship for us. But one thing I wanted to really drive home for this audience is how important this is and what an important gap that this funding in the program that Mary and her team built is. I guess a simple way to think about it is when you start up a company, especially a company that has a technology base, a technology platform, and you go from an idea discovery in a laboratory, Danforth Center, and you'll hear from one of our Danforth Center investigators, Bala, later. You have that discovery, and maybe some of that early research to come up with the data is funded by the National Science Foundation, and it's in a lab. And it looks very promising. You think, oh, you know what? I think this would be a great idea for a company. And you might find friends and family money or maybe some local money, a couple $100,000 to get you going to the next step. But then it's time to go to professional money managers, venture capitalists, and you need now a $3 or $4 million A round. And those money managers say, wow, I love the management team. I love the target that you all are going after, drought-tolerant corn. But the data that you have, although terrific, is not enough. You need to de-risk that data more. I want to know that it works. It may work in a model crop like Arabidopsis. Will it work in X and Y or Z? There are very few sources to de-risk that data and advance it. What this allows with the partnership with the Danforth Center and the non-dilutive funding is research projects that, in this case the Danforth Center labs, can create that data, and the investors at the other end know not only is there data, but the data comes from a blue ribbon institution like the Danforth Center or NREL, so there's real weight to that. And now the likelihood of them saying yes to that $3 or $4 million A round is much higher. That's a barrier that's overcome, and it's the difference between a company moving on to the next stages and hopefully someday a billion-dollar company with products and services in farmers' fields, or not, or just dying because that gap exists. And so it's a really critical need, and I just don't know many examples like this, Mary. So thanks for that. So you work for the Wells Fargo Foundation. There's a Wells Fargo company, made a big investment, $30 million. And how, with the lens of looking back now, 4, 5, 6 years, how does it fit in with your corporation? How does it fit in with the foundation's reason for being?
So our foundation is sizable. So we announced that we would fund our foundation with 2% of after-tax profits. And so we invest over $440 million annually. We're one of the largest corporate foundations in America. And our foundation just went through a strategic review this year, and we reset our corporate foundation strategy to focus on 3 areas: housing affordability, small business growth and vitality, and financial health and well-being. And really understanding that as a financial institution, we needed to bring all our expertise and levers to bear to really help customers and communities thrive. And that, housing affordability is a barrier to that. Small business growth is a contributor to thriving communities, and financial health is critically important to all of us to be successful and have true well-being. And so This program, the Innovation Incubator, while its roots were in sustainability, of course, fits nicely within the small business entrepreneurship pillar, and is really, as I said, we're seeing, small businesses are a generator of employment and economic growth, and so we'd love to see more clean tech or ag tech focused entrepreneurs really thrive, and so it fits very nicely into kind of our foundation strategy and then our broader corporate responsibility strategy, which is more than philanthropy. It's really about having positive impact through our products and services, through our own operations, kind of walking the talk in our own business, and through our community engagement. One of our core principles within the foundation is sustainability and really leading on how we can help accelerate the transition to a low carbon economy. And so we think, again, that by supporting these entrepreneurs that are really focused on technologies that drive efficiency is a really powerful way to deliver on that.
So in the couple of minutes we have left before we transition to the video, maybe this is the last question, and I hope it's a fair one. No, it's no secret. There have been a lot of changes at the top at Wells Fargo.
Really?
So you have your fourth CEO in the last couple of years, and a new foundation president. Your
Yes.
boss, right?
No, a peer,
Your peer.
a peer.
So she is joining the organization and has talked about a new direction, new areas
Right.
of focus.
Right.
Will this kind of program still fit? And do you envision the IN2 program going on for years and continue to do the great things it has? Or do you see there may be a strategic pivot?
Yeah, so as I said, I think the linkage between sustainability and entrepreneurship and small businesses is very clear. So I'm not concerned that we will have made all these investments for naught. I think what our focus today is bringing more partners into the tent. We need to deploy more capital. We need to support more entrepreneurs across this country. We need to move more quickly to address climate change and sustainability challenges. And so we don't have proprietary ownership of this program. We want to attract other corporations to join us in this mission to really help, instead of 5 agricultural technology companies, why not 50, right? Let's really bring all ideas and solutions to the table. And so we will continue to support IN2 and our collaborations and partnerships with great organizations like Danforth, but we invite others to join us and really kind of accelerate, put the foot on the gas even further.
And Mary, what are the 3 areas of focus, the 3 pillars
For
that
the
were announced?
foundation?
Yes, for the
Okay.
foundation.
So again, I lead corporate responsibility and sustainability. The philanthropy work and the foundation is one lever that we as a company have to pull to live our corporate citizenship goals and priorities. And so that lever is really focused on economic empowerment, so housing affordability, small business growth and vitality, and financial health and well-being. Our whole corporate citizenship platform is really about who we are as a company and the purpose we have and the positive impact we have. And so again, one lever is through our philanthropic investments and partnerships. Another lever is in our own operations. So we just announced today our largest ever renewable energy purchase, for example. So we're powered by 100% renewable energy. We have engaged our supply chain to make sure they're managing human rights and sustainability issues well. So in our own operations, what are the things we're doing to being a good corporate citizen? And then through our products and services. So I mentioned the $200 billion sustainable finance commitment. Last year we did $23 billion of sustainable finance. We have done over $7 billion of renewable energy investments. So we own 9.5% of the wind and solar capacity in the United States. So really across our enterprise, how are we pulling all of those levers to really demonstrate corporate citizenship?
That's great. And for, I think, the IN2 program and what we're trying to do together, it fits in the center of the bullseye of the small business development and launching small companies. So like I said, we're thrilled to be part of it. We've just started this journey together a little over a year ago. We're about to announce our call for proposal for the second cohort. We'll start to get business plans and businesses submitted to the program in next couple of months. We'll vet them. We have a process which leads to an April announcement of the next cohort of 5. So why don't we use this as a transition, and we'll tee up the video. We'll give you a little bit more color into the IN2 program, meet some of the other companies and players, and then we'll ask the panelists to come up and we'll give you some examples of the relationships here and some of the work going on here. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
So the Wells Fargo Innovation Incubator, or IN2, is a technology incubator and platform administered out of the National Renewable Energy Laboratory and funded by the Wells Fargo Foundation. We're thrilled to introduce our first ever cohort, tackling innovations in the food, energy, water nexus.
We think the food, energy, water nexus is just a really natural outgrowth of the work that we've already been doing with NREL to focus on energy, and to tie that into where Wells Fargo has real expertise in agriculture.
We look forward to helping each of the 5 companies in our first agriculture cohort to validate their technology through collaborative research here at the Danforth Center, and thus to accelerate their commercialization.
My name is Asan Ali. I'm the CEO of Intrinsics Bio. We're commercializing a groundbreaking collection of microbial inoculants for crops.
I'm Christine Handel. I'm VP for Strategy and Operations at Covercress Inc. We're developing a new crop for the Midwest, adding soil protection and farmer revenue.
My name is Orlando Saez. I am the CEO and co-founder of Acre Technologies. At Acre, we're transforming the way that we observe and monitor crops.
My name is Bala Venkata, and I am co-founder of Renaissance Ag. Renaissance Ag is an ag biotech startup focusing on developing precision-targeted, environmentally friendly, RNA-based insecticides.
My name is Tyler Sickles. I'm the founder and CEO of SoulGrow. SoulGrow produces greenhouse canopies impregnated with nanomaterials that increase the usable sunlight.
We're excited to work with the researchers at the Danforth Center because we can accelerate the research associated with our technology.
It allows us to network with so many different companies and different partners that Wells Fargo already has in the startup world.
We don't need to look very far out into the future to see we have a pressing need to solve some pretty big problems. The companies in IN2 are doing just that. They're innovating ways to feed a growing population through better crop yields, conserving and protecting the water supply, and figuring out how to power all these processes in the most non-pollutive and energy-efficient way possible.
All right. So these guys just magically appeared, so stealthy. You rehearsed there, sneaking up here. So why don't we start off with each of you just brief introducing yourself and what your role is, either here at the center or with your company, and then we'll start to have a dialogue. Malia, I'll start with you.
I'm Malia Guillen. I'm an assistant member and principal investigator here at the Danforth Center.
Noah Fulgren, Director of Data Science and Principal Investigator here at the Danforth Center.
Hi, I'm Bala Venkata. I'm co-founder of Renaissance Ag.
I'm Dave Czar, Chief Technology Officer of Acre Technologies.
So you see here, obviously, we have a mix of, give a perspective from two Danforth Center scientists leading the work, partnering with an organization, and then 2 company founders, and Bala wears 2 hats because he does both, so he's in an interesting position. So actually, Bala, why don't we start with you? Tell us a little bit more about your background and how you ended up at the Danforth Center, and then what you're doing with Renaissance.
Sure. As Sam mentioned, I wear 2 hats. I am a Danforth Center scientist and also co-founder of Renaissance Ag. We are a spin-off out of Danforth Center, and we are developing RNA-based biopesticides that are safe, specific, and sustainable. Equally importantly for me, I come from a farming background. I grew up on a farm in India. While growing up on a farm in India, I have witnessed firsthand the disastrous health and environmental consequences of pesticide use. Farmers, especially smallholder farmers, cannot tolerate or cannot take losses due to crop pests. So they're heavily reliant on chemical pesticides. When you think of it, chemical pesticides are very expensive. They're not very specific in that they kill the target pest, but also harm bees and butterfly. Equally importantly, the chemical pesticides are harmful for farmers, consumers, and also environment. Sustainable biotechnologies like what we are trying to develop could provide safer alternatives to farmers. I am motivated by my own experiences to be both a scientist at the Danforth Center and also to co-found Renaissance Ag to develop safe, specific, and sustainable alternatives to chemical pesticides. And I believe we are in the right path with Renaissance Ag in developing a RNA-based biopesticide.
That's great, thank you. So Dave, you're the outlier here, right? You're not part of the, that's right. So your perspective is interesting. First of all, tell us, I want you to tell us a little bit about Acre, but the perspective I'd like for you to give, I looked over, your career and have known you've been in a lot of different places, from big companies to academia. You're physically now embedded here, located here, and so the second half of your question is, give us a sense for how this is same or different from the other places that you've worked.
Sure. Yeah, I'm an outlier, although I'm from DeKalb, Illinois. I'm not a farmer. I know what corn and soybeans are, but my parents were at the university there, and I came to St. Louis, Washington University, to study. I did undergraduate and graduate degrees in electrical engineering and computer science. After my master's degree, I was cheap and I didn't leave, so I stayed at WashU for 20 years doing teaching and research. I was in things like high-speed networking, medical devices, circuit design technology. And what happened then is I said, there's a lot of interesting things going on. I worked with a lot of amazing researchers, but a lot of the things that we did, nobody cared about. They didn't make a direct impact. So I've actually started 3 companies while I was at WashU, and in 2012 I left to be the CTO, co-founder of one of them doing medical devices. That company got sold, and I was looking for some new opportunities to make an impact and do something interesting in the St. Louis area, and Acre kind of fell in my lap. But what attracted me so much was their vision of using technology. I'm a technology guy. Using technology to actually help farmers do a better job of in-field planning and create better crop yields and sustainable solutions. So that's kind of where I came from. What's so interesting about what we're doing here and part of the IN2 program is, I did academic research for 20 years. It was challenging, it was amazing, but there's a difference between that and what we do as a startup or as even a medium-sized company. Everything that we do has a customer need associated with it. I'm not just coming up with an idea and trying it for 3 years. The other part of that is because there's a customer need, we need to succeed. And we try things, sometimes we fail, we use that as a learning experience, and we quickly move on to something else. And that's really the idea of everything that you do as a startup, everything you do as an investigator. I think when it's a research and development program, it's not an academic program. I think obviously academic programs are really important. They do foundational science, but the kinds of things that we can do here, the project that we're doing with Malia, and she may tell you a little bit about that, I'll let her do that, is really about finding a solution. We have customers, we know what they need, we think we know what they need, we want to deliver that. And with the research that we can do here, we couldn't do ourselves, we don't have the scientific background for that. So it's a great partnership to help us move the needle forward.
Yeah, so what's interesting to me is, on its face, it doesn't seem like a fit that makes sense. You're a technology company. You have devices and sensors and drones and, right, so engineering and the like. And you're working with a biologist and biology trained in a biology forward center. How does it work? And tell us a little bit about that sort of unlikely relationship, I would say.
It may be, but I think what's important is not everybody knows everything. You mentioned you don't know what you don't know, and I know I don't know a lot. So again, we have customers with a need. I'm a technology guy. I can make things work. You can give me a sensor that I can use, but I can't develop the sensor. I don't know the biology. I know that there's something out there that maybe is interesting, and then we need somebody like the people that are here that understand that piece of technology and how to make that work and give us something that we can then deploy and actually find a use for, as opposed to just keeping something in the lab or us never even going down that path. There's no way we could staff up and have the equipment and the kinds of people that are here that we can do so efficiently right now by collaborating. And that's really what it's about, is finding those pieces that we can collaborate and transition.
So Malia, you're at the other end of this relationship. First, tell us a little bit more about how long you've been here, sort of your lab and what you do, your expertise, and then how this whole thing makes sense.
Sure. So I would say that I'm a homegrown lab in that I started here as a postdoc in 2012, and then I started my own group as a principal investigator here in 2016. So I was really happy to stay. It's a hard place to leave because it's a beautiful place to do research. And we're really lucky because there are programs here like IN2. And we wouldn't agree to do a program like IN2 unless it was mutually beneficial. So for us and the people in our group, it's really a glimpse behind the veil. So a lot of the people who are working in our group are trainees. They're postdoctoral researchers, they're graduate students, they're technicians who may want to go on to work in startup companies. And it's the opportunity to get a peek into that life without sort of jumping in all the way. And it's also the opportunity to work on a research question that we're fundamentally interested in. So there are so many benefits to being a part of this program. So we're really happy about it.
That's great.
Yeah.
No, I'll ask you the same thing. A little bit more about yourself, how long you've been here, your lab, and then the relationship or the work you do with Bala and his company in the IN2 program.
Sure, yeah. So I've been at the Danforth Center, I think about 8.5 years now. One of the things I did when I came was we built the core facility that I now run, and so we provide computing and data analysis services to labs at the Danforth Center. But also our group does research, and so we do a lot of tool development because we're also a technology group. One of those core technologies is taking image data and then extracting biologically meaningful data out of that. And so in reading, the research that Renaissance was proposing to do, it was actually a really great fit because in their product development work, robotics and imaging actually is something that we think is going to be really useful in driving their product development and speeding it up so that it's not, poor Rob out there staring at plates all day. And so I think it's a really nice adaptation of the tools that we've developed for research purposes in this business venture.
That's great. If you look at the interaction here, it makes a lot of sense for what you guys, the companies, get out of this, right? You get this great, generous, non-dilutive funding from Wells Fargo, and it helps you move your business forward and hopefully take the next step and raise those next dollars. But the IN2 program has to find the right partner academic institution because it only works if our investigators, like the two of you and the rest who aren't on stage, who are part of this, who say, I'm interested, pick me, and I think we can do stuff together. I'd like to have your perspective, maybe start with you, Noah, on what made you interested and why did you raise your hand, and you're still happy you raised your hand 6 months later?
Yeah. A couple things. I worked with a postdoc here a year or so ago, and he had a business idea too, and we did a program where we went to the NSF and they kind of trained us in entrepreneurial thinking, which is very different than how we're trained as academics. So that was part of it, and then the other was Malia and I both were on the panel of people that reviewed these applications, so we kind of got to see a wide swath of all these different business ideas. And I think there's a lot of interesting stuff out there, and so sort of peeking behind the scenes, like Malia said, was what piqued my interest, and obviously the fit with Renaissance also.
What about you, Malia?
So my group is interested in how plants respond to the environment, and we do that with the perspective of basic research. But I think all of us want to make an impact and want those things to make it out to the field someday. So even though we might not go out to the field, we want to make sure we're working on problems that can actually be applied to farmers. It brings us one step closer. So even if we're not the ones going out, we know the research we're doing can have an impact and does have a driving force behind it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's so important, and not just for you two as leaders in your labs, but your students and your postdocs, and it really gives all of them this insight into what's this other world look like. And
right, and if you're talking about immediate impact, the people we train are maybe going to be creating their own groups or going out to companies, and so we can have a bigger impact by training people and spending time and doing that in the right now. Yeah.
So Bala, could you ever have imagined that you would be, one of your titles is the co-founder of a startup and a chief scientific officer? I mean, think back 3 years ago, right?
No, I mean, so as Malia just mentioned, I mean, I started off as a researcher too, so the academic thinking is slightly different from what it takes to be industry. But I feel that at the Danforth Center, generally, there is a very good ecosystem to encourage entrepreneurship. So when we see a product proposition here in a research, there is a help and support system available that would very quickly morph you into an entrepreneur. So 3 years ago, no, but from that third year to now, yes. I'm very excited to be part of Renaissance Ag and having co-founded that.
Yeah, and we just, I saw Bala present at an investor conference in September, and you've come a long way, baby. Here's the great suit, he had the look.
So that's the first thing you do.
Next thing, he's going to be wearing a hoodie like Mark Zuckerberg. So but here's what really matters in the end, right? We're here to improve the human condition through plant science. You talked about impact, right? In the end, it's changing the world, changing farmers' lives, changing individual lives. And I do think you're right that even though the Danforth Center might not be able to count it as a direct thing, our involvement in things like this. So Dave, tell us if and when Acre is successful, how will that make the world better? Why does it matter, and how will we achieve the goal of improving the human condition through plant science, through our collaboration with you?
So there's really a couple ways that we think about that. So what we're fundamentally trying to do is to automate the crop scouting problem. In a nutshell, that's getting into your field and seeing what's going on in your field now. Not historically, not what's predicted. And a farmer makes 2 or 3 major decisions in a growing season, and it has a huge impact on his output. And they need good information to make those decisions wisely and be informed. And what happens now is a lot of people do things prophylactically because, well, we've done it all that way all the time. For the past 5 years, we've done that. So we're trying to get them the information they need to know what's going on in the field so they can make informed decisions about if they need to do an application, and if they decide they're going to do an application of some chemical or fertilizer, where they're going to do it and how much they're going to do it, as opposed to doing it over the entire field. So there has several direct impacts. One is for the farmer themselves, it can save them money. They become profitable, or maybe they weren't before. It can increase their yields, which is good for the consumer, because now we get the things that we want, we get more of it. And it's also good for the environment, because we're potentially applying much less of the chemicals and the fertilizers, right, that can affect our water and ground supplies, our ground and our water supplies for years to come. So I think it works across all those areas of the grower themselves, the consumer who gets the products, and also the environment.
And Bala, quickly, I know you mentioned it a little bit in your intro, but if your view, if you could look forward in the future 10 years and Renaissance is successful, how will it have changed the world and changed the village in India where you grew up?
Fundamentally, I mean, the RNA-based biopesticides, if successful, would provide farmers, no matter where they are, with the precision pest management tools. This would directly increase their farm profits and also control a wide array of pests, including pests like fall armyworm, which is currently the #1 threat to food production. And also, if you think about it, every year throughout the world, we use greater than 6 billion pounds of pesticides for agricultural purposes. That's a remarkably high number. And not surprisingly, agriculture is the leading cause of groundwater contamination across the world, including United States. So our precision-based RNA biopesticides could cut down on the chemical pesticide use, so that would be good for the farmers, consumers, and it would also make our water and food cleaner. So generally, very helpful for the environment.
That's great. And what I like about these two examples is you have projects that are going to be deployed in a field and making changes in months or a couple of years. With yours, while it's earlier stage, it's a longer play, so the time frame is in 5, 6, 7 years. But with magnificent opportunity if all the milestones are hit and the technology continues to develop. I promise to keep time for Q&A, but I'll ask just the two of you. Do you envision yourselves being part of a startup someday or starting a company of your own?
What I really like is that it's the opportunity to collaborate with a company and really to see how hard it is, the great parts of it, the hard parts of it. The parts of starting a lab, they're a lot like a startup company.
Yeah.
It never say never, I guess.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I don't know that I do, but I also see that it's a path to impact, and I think it's an important connection that we have to make, so that we're not just kind of doing research in a bubble, and we have to, use the tools we develop in these ventures.
Yeah, I definitely think we're going to be borrowing a lot of the mindset in terms of, something's not working. Instead of drilling something to the ground and trying to figure out why, sometimes you have to cut your losses, and that's often a really valuable lesson to learn. Yeah.
Maybe your answers will change in a year and a half when Bala drives to work in his Lamborghini. I'm going to ask Mary to come back up stage, and then we've got some questions from the audience. Mary, why don't you take this? Okay, let's see. So the first one, Mary, would Wells Fargo be open to other companies and foundations joining the IN2 program? As founders, would you like to expand the reach of it, or do you feel a sense of ownership like this is mine?
No, yes. We would love other collaborators to join the program. We would love to be able to expand. I hope you were all as inspired as I was hearing from these entrepreneurs and researchers. Imagine kind of 10xing that, right? Imagine the incredible impact that the program could have if we brought more companies and foundations in to help support more entrepreneurs and more good research. So would be very welcome to collaboration, have no proprietary ownership of the work.
Remind us, Mary, if you count the IN2, the partnership with NREL, how many companies, there's 5 in our first cohort, we're about to launch a second 5. How many?
So we've supported 25 through the NREL, so 25 companies focused on the built environment through NREL, and now 5 ag tech cohorts, so 30 companies to date.
And I've seen, I don't have it with me, but I've seen data on sort of the multiplier effect, and the follow-on funding that those companies have had is really amazing.
Yeah, I think the way you phrased it as de-risking them for investors and partners is really powerful, and we've seen that. We see kind of VCs circling, waiting for companies to come out of the program and to have kind of results from the program. So it's really been, I think, a powerful and positive experience for the entrepreneurs in the program.
That's terrific. This next question is for you, Dave. It says, Acre recently announced that they're moving their headquarters from Chicago to St. Louis. Good choice, good job. So the question is, I just wasn't going to stop at that statement and glow, but the question is, what inspired the move to St. Louis, and what would you say to other ag tech companies that are considering moving here?
The honest truth is money. There was a sizable investment. Lewis and Clark was leading a seed round, and that is often the case. If you get significant funding, they want you close by so they can watch you. That's the reality. So it was great for me. I was in St. Louis. They found me. I wasn't part of the move. I was here when they came. And that's actually how I got involved, was through Lewis and Clark, and they were looking for some leadership. So that's the reason they came here. I think there's another piece of it, is that obviously this is an ag tech area. And that's what we do, right? It's precision ag. So being in Chicago, that's a food tech, not an ag tech, even though that you think of it as agricultural. So
Yeah.
I think it's a better fit, honestly. So I'm glad they came.
So currently, you guys have some borrowed offices here because we're waiting for Helix is full, and the Bridge Park has a second building being built, and so the idea then is open up that cycle and we'll have some space, and then you guys will move more permanently into the ecosystem, and so that's terrific. The next question is for Dave and Bala. It says, what advice do you have for other entrepreneurs that may want to start their own venture, their own startup?
Don't. Get some sleep, because you're going to need it. You want to?
So in my experience, what a potential entrepreneur should do is identify the product or the service part of the idea. Ideas are vague. Narrow it down to a product or a service and crash test it. The sooner you do it, the sooner you narrow down it, the sooner you test it, the better are your chances of moving forward, either successfully or unsuccessfully.
Great.
Talk to everybody. Get as much advice as you can. Advice is free. It's often worth less. But get as much as you can, because I had this discussion with folks just recently. There's over 7 billion people in the world. To think that your idea has never been had before, right? You're fooling yourself. So find out what's going on, find out why you're different and how you can do it better. Talk to people.
That's great. The second half of the question, it's a quick answer, is same kind of question for Noah and Malia. If there are scientists out there thinking, should I do this kind of thing, what would you say to them about your experience working in this?
I mean, definitely. I mean, the IN2 program, definitely. If you have the chance to be part of this program and partner with the company, we don't have any downsides. It furthers our research. It helps give some perspective and training for our people. So yeah, it's been a great experience so far.
And I think it can also give you access to unique technologies too that you maybe wouldn't have thought of using as part of your research. Yeah.
That's great. So before we hand it over to Dr. Carrington to close, I want to make sure that we give a warm thank you to Dave and Bala and Noah, Malia, and our special guest, Mary, who came in a long way just for this and has been such a great creator of this program.
Tim, I don't know how you saw over the top of this.
Maybe that was on purpose.
I want to join Sam in thanking all of our panelists. First, Sam, thank you for working the night shift. Sam is a partner of mine here at the Danforth Center and someone I work with every day, and it's an honor to do so. And thank you all of the panelists. There were so many good things about the Danforth Center that were highlighted in that 45 minutes that you just heard. I can't even recap them all. I just want to highlight a couple. You know, if you look at this logo in front of this platform, it's got 3 words at the bottom. Some of you don't even know why those 3 words are there, but they sound pretty good. Discovery, community, impact. Those are our brand pillars. There's a little group out of downtown St. Louis called Rogers and Townsend. Tim Rogers, thank you so much, who helped us formulate those brand pillars 6 or 7 years ago. They define everything that we do at the Danforth Center. And you heard great illustration of that. We discover things here at the Danforth Center. We learn how nature works. That's what we're here for. But we do it for a purpose. We want that knowledge to have some kind of meaningful impact in the world. This is a way it gets done. The notion, not that anyone has it out here, but you'd be surprised how many plant scientists have this notion that You will make a discovery in your laboratory, and then somehow, magically, you're going to take that discovery, walk out to a farmer, hand it to them, and say, here you go. Do farming better, or do your work better. You're laughing. The scientists are laughing the hardest up here because we've heard this. The reality is you need that community piece, the community part of our brand is exactly what you saw here. We can't do anything here at the Danforth Center without a community of partners who can take innovation or discovery out of the laboratory and into a marketplace where someone can take advantage of it. It's as simple as that. I also want to underscore something that Malia said. There's another benefit and a great illustration of the community that we're building here. Postdoctoral trainees and graduate students and technicians and undergraduate students get exposure through what is effectively an in-house internship to see how companies work. The academic world is very different from the private sector, as most of you appreciate. Getting a flavor for it is as valuable as anything that Malia and Noah and Bala or any of our other PIs are going to teach anyone. I'll give you an example. With this community of companies and the Danforth Center, this innovation community that's been built on this site, a lot of companies that our scientists and our trainees can go visit or do an internship with or go and eat lunch with, hang out with at Venture Cafe. Great example of this, one of our recent graduate students who just graduated a few weeks ago, defended her thesis. Her name is Ann Phillips. She had the opportunity to go next door and do an internship with an innovative company called New Leaf Symbiotics. They were glad to have her, glad to host her, had a good long look at her through an in-house internship and said, yeah, we want to hire you. Ann packed up her bags upstairs from Becky Bart's lab, walked across the parking lot, unpacked her bag at New Leaf Symbiotics, and she's their newest employee. That's what this community here on this site is all about, and that's how we're going to grow the last word, the impact that we have. It wouldn't be possible without real money, however, and I want to not cheapen it by saying money, but simply point out that programs like IN2 and the sponsors, the funders, the drivers of that program, our partners at Wells Fargo, have been invaluable. You're making an impact here on this site, Mary, and we appreciate it. Thank you all for coming. The next, I started, and I don't even remember what the next conversations is. The next conversation will be later. Come to that, too. Have a good evening.